Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered, behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have another really exciting interview ahead of us with someone who recovered from severe PTSD and severe injuries to go on and win an Academy Award. Today, you'll be meeting Chana Studley, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who's writing, coaching, and speaking at international conferences and retreats about the MindBody Connection. Welcome to the show, Chana. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, Suzy. It's a real pleasure to be here.
I'm delighted to hear your story. I know we're going to have a great conversation about your whole midlife entrepreneur story and all the things. We're going to be talking about your business and what's going really well, and also what midlife issues might be getting in your way to some extent and maybe challenging for you in your life as well as a business owner. So let's get started with my favorite question. How old are you? How long have you been an entrepreneur? And what it is that you do in the world? Take it away.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm 61. And I've actually been self-employed my whole life. I've never had a proper job.
Amazing.
Even when I was a school teacher, I only taught 4 days a week and did my own projects, the rest of the week. So yeah, I've never had a proper job. So being self-employed has just been the way I've always worked, because I started out in the theatre in London. And then I went from theatre to commercials to TV to movies. And all those projects they're project-based, So even though I might have worked for the same company for a while, I was always, an outside contractor. So I've always had to do my own taxes, which I've always hated.
Oh, I'm with you.
It's the least favorite part of my job. And promote myself and all that stuff. So it's just the way I've been living ever since I left college. So yeah, I started working in movies, and I did movies for about 20 years, which meant I moved to California. And the first movie I did special effects. So I did special effects, and I was particularly known for doing animatronics and making copies of real animals. So if a movie had an animal in it that had to talk or ride a bike or do something that animals don't do or are not allowed to do, then we would make a copy, and it would cut from the real animal to my puppet, and you wouldn't know the difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What was your favorite character?
The favorite, I think, well, it's funny. The most magnificent puppet I ever made, I think, was the tiger I did for Eddie Murphy in Dr. Dolittle. That was pretty phenomenal, because I had to go study the tiger up close. And did you know that tigers' faces are individual? Like the markings are like a human face. That no two tigers' faces are the same.
I did not know that.
You learn these things on the job. But I'd say as a overall project, my favorite project obviously was Babe, the talking pig. That's what we got the Academy Award for. So I made the dogs in that movie. And then people say, there's no puppets in that movie. I go, well, does your dog talk? Right? And then they'll say, well, it was not in 1993, it wasn't, and we got the Academy Award in 94 as a team. When I say I got an Academy Award, it was definitely a team effort. But yeah, there was all puppet shots. Whenever those animals are talking, they're puppet shots.
That's amazing. Well, I have a Newfoundland, and let me tell you, he's very expressive, but he doesn't talk.
Right.
He makes lots of noise, but yeah, that would be amazing. I saw some YouTube videos lately of people teaching you how to speak in cat. How you can say something and your cat understands, and your cat will come to you when you say it. I just get sucked right into that. That's for sure. Well, so keep going. So you're in Los Angeles. Then what happened?
Yeah. So just to go back a little bit because I kind of had two careers going on. So I had this career in the entertainment business for I guess a good 20, 25, almost 30 years, I guess, altogether. But I trained as a counselor when I was in college. I trained with Manchester Rape Crisis Centre, Manchester in the north of England. And it's kind of alarming to think now that there were only 2 centres in the country at the time. It's like times have changed really quickly in the last, 20, 30 years. I was trained to answer the hotline, to give talks to like lawyers, social workers, people who would come in contact with women in crisis, and then also to go out into the community and give talks. And at the time, a lot of the women we talked to didn't know that you could say no. I mean, it was quite, it's not that long ago, and
Wow.
things have changed, dramatically in our favor. So I trained as this counselor. So I had these two careers going on all the time, because when I'm working on a movie or a theater project, it could be very intense for like 3 months or 6 months, and then it's done, finished. And you, what am I going to do today? Right? So I'm not the kind of person who sits around and do nothing. So then I would go volunteer for various, organizations. And I started out in Manchester and then in London. And then when I was in California, I worked for all kinds of, like charitable organizations, working with alcoholics and addicts, with people in crisis and trauma, children, who are at risk, all kinds of situations. So I kind of had these two careers going along side by side because I didn't want to be sitting around doing nothing. And then about 10 years ago, I came across a new paradigm in psychology. It's called the Three Principles, which I'm happy to discuss.
Yeah.
And I got very excited about this because it is very different. It's not just another technique or another modality. It's actually an explanation of how everything works, particularly in psychology, but in fact, a lot wider than that. And I had to go to London to do some training. So to fill in another part of the story that you mentioned at the beginning, the PTSD, was that when I was in the UK, I was mugged 3 times. The first 2 times in Manchester, I had my skull fractured, and I know you can't see it, but I can put my finger right on it. My skull was fractured in a nightclub. I was a punk rocker. It was, the early 80s. Everything was about music. And I was in a club, and this guy wanted to dance with me, and I kind of pushed him away. And the last thing I remember is his hand on the back of my head, and he smashed my head into a concrete pillar. I lost my
Oh,
eyesight for briefly, and I was unconscious for a while. And but that's the kind of thing that happens when you're a punk rock student. So I kind of got over that one.
oh
And
my God.
about 3 years later, I'd finished college, and I was walking very close to where I had been living. It was only 6 o'clock in the evening. And 3 men came out of the dark, slammed me on the ground, beat the living daylights out of me. I thought I was going to die. And I had 3 herniated discs after that one, where they slammed me on the ground. And then things got pretty bad. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I could barely leave the house. And then a year after that, when I finally decided that's it, Manchester's cleared the problem, I'm going to move to London. I moved down to London. I'd only been there a short while working in the theatre, and I was riding my bike home from the theatre one night when a young kid, about 16-year-old, threw a child's bike at my head as I was riding home. So it was like, bam. It was like being shot out of a cannon at a brick wall, because the impact, I took it in my neck and shoulders, and he broke my neck. Thank God not the spinal cord, which I think was bruised, but the C2 and C3, which are the 2 vertebrae below your neck, below your skull.
Hannah, I cannot believe what you're saying. Like, my jaw is just dropped open. I think it's unusual to be mugged at all, let alone 3 times. And your injuries were so severe, physical and emotional, and such close calls.
Yeah. Yeah. By the third one, I was terrified to leave my bedroom, because I knew that if I left the house, I was going to get hurt. Like if Suzy, if you'd come to me and said, "Oh, I'll go to a yoga class with you. Let's walk in the park," I'd be like, "No," because I had evidence. I had police reports and X-rays to prove it. I was in such a weird state that I knew that if I walked down the street, if there was a bus that was going to go out of control in central London, it would get me. Kind of like Murphy's Law kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of where my thinking was at. So
Wow.
I wasn't, say again, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I was pretty much losing it. And so that was a kind of a period of about 10 years when these events were happening, and I mean, I was never officially told I had PTSD, but I'm sure that's, because it'd only just been recognized as a diagnosis at the time. So all I got was a cup of tea and, suck it up and walk it off. There you go. You'll be fine. Okay?
Wow.
And so, yeah, and I was very fortunate. Eventually I asked for help, and I think it took me a while, to looking back, to wonder why I didn't ask for help earlier. And I think it's because I had trained as a counselor. I had this story in my head that I should be able to cope with this.
Hmm.
I should be able to walk it off. Like I should just, and I couldn't. It was, it was my thinking was attacking me on a daily basis, screaming at me like, if you leave the house, you're going to die. And then I eventually reached out to a women's crisis center, and they were amazing. They just kind of scooped me up and loved me well and set me on my feet. And actually, that's what my first book is about. It's about recovering from that kind of trauma, and how I started to learn how to turn my experience into something to be helpful, to other people. So that's what was kind of going on for, a good, say, 20 years. And then along came the chronic pain, which whenever I would tell people my history, like with these injuries, or, they'd say, oh, well, that's why you wake up with your arm numb, because that's where the nerves for your arm come out of, your neck there. Or no wonder you have lower back pain, because where they slammed you on the ground, and I had sciatica. I used to describe myself as Audrey Hepburn on one side and Marilyn Monroe on the other side, because I would literally be contorted and bent out of shape. I had a walking stick by the time I was 27. So
Wow.
I had a monthly chiropractic appointment for 25 years. No matter where I was, what movie I was working on around the world, I had a chiropractor. I would have massage, and I was regularly lying on the floor in agony about every 4 to 6 weeks. Rushed.
Wow. I hate saying wow every few minutes, but this is a hard story to take in because I'm looking at you and I'm looking at your notes and your accomplishments. So your ability, your resilience, and your ability to keep moving forward and keep working on yourself at every level to solve problems, to figure out the solutions, the answers. You're really digging deep here, personally and for a larger cause.
Yeah. Yeah. So I trained as a trauma counselor. So a lot of that volunteering I was doing in between the projects, I worked as a trauma counselor because I'd gone through it and was recovered as far as I thought. And then, like I said, I found this new paradigm about 10 years ago. And it was completely different. It was different to anything I'd seen or done before. And I got so excited. I wanted to go to London and do a training course. And it was a 6-month course, and it was expensive, and I had lots of flights. I had to be there, frequently. And I had to save money. So I thought, I feel pretty good. I'll cut out my chiropractic appointment. So for 6 months, I didn't go to the chiropractor. And at the end of the course, all my pain had gone. I hadn't had even the slightest flare up in that. And think about it, flying, staying with friends, not being on your regular schedule. They're all the kind of things where my back would have gotten angry. My stomach would have got upset because I had IBS. I had skin issues. I had all kinds of things over the years, and none of it. And so I started thinking, wow, that's interesting. I haven't had any symptoms since I came across this new understanding, these new ideas. So I started to investigate the mind-body connection, and started reading, swallowing books and books and books of research, and kind of putting it together. And I saw that my body had been screaming at me to slow down. Because one of the things they used to tell me was the reason my back was always so messed up is because I have one leg slightly longer than the other. Most people have something that's not quite, aligned. It's like a centimeter or like half an inch. And guess what? My leg is still slightly longer than the other, and I don't have any pain anymore. Right? So it was, I see now that the anxiety and stress I was in my head, whether it was like being on a movie set with, famous people and trying to not be perfect, not make a mistake and do the right thing, running my own business, I was going through menopause just at the beginning of this,
Right.
and I see now that I was so up in my head that my body was screaming at me to slow down and come back to the moment. And so now, when I say I'm pain-free for almost 10 years now, I can still get the occasional twinge because I'm a human being, but it doesn't turn into anything anymore. I don't have massive flare-ups anymore, which is amazing.
So, what is the essence of slowing down that's so nurturing, whatever the best word is?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both those words work. Um, I think, well, first of all, let's look at the opposite. A busy mind is exhausting, right? And especially, I think those of us who are, busy doing and going and being, and always got the next project going, and I've got my finger in several pies, and and you're spinning those plates. That busy mind can be very useful, but if it's also full up with, I'm also a recovering perfectionist, so and I've learned that perfectionism isn't necessarily about having everything color coded or having. What I learned about perfectionism is it's about, we notice when things are wrong. We notice when things are out of place, or they should be like this, or we're always thinking the more efficient way to do something. And so after all the violence I went through, one of the major symptoms that most people suffer with trauma is hypervigilance. You get very hypervigilant about your surroundings, certain noises, places, people. So I did a lot of self-help work, which kind of fixed a lot of that. But I think the hypervigilance went inward. And then I got very vigilant about my thinking. I used to say I was really good at thought hygiene. Right? I wasn't allowed any negative thoughts, because I knew where negative thoughts take you, and it's a miserable, dark place. So I was, as well as doing my business, as well as, taking care of everything, being a one-man show, I was also working very hard on keeping my thoughts and my mind, perfect. And it was exhausting. And I think that's why my body was in so much pain all the time, because I was up in my head feeling this very busy experience. And I can give you an example. I worked, after COVID, after the epidemic, the pandemic, I worked with quite a lot of people with long COVID. And I came across this idea that you could be, there's kind of like an inner speed and an outer speed. Because you could be lying on the sofa, lying in bed if you're recovering, or if you're tired or fatigued, or, whatever it could be. But if your mind's going 100 miles an hour, that's not really resting, right?
Right,
You've got a phone,
exactly.
Netflix, talking, dictating, writing down ideas, right? So even when we're physically slowed down by, maybe pain or fatigue, if your mind's still going 100 miles an hour, then that's what your brain and your body are responding to. So slowing down is really seeing that we're always feeling our thinking. And once I started seeing that thinking is always moving, it's like I'm going to say it's a spiritual energy. I have no idea what I'm saying right now, but it's some kind of spiritual energy that moves through our minds. And when you see that it's always moving, there's actually nothing to do. So what I say a lot now to my clients is, there's nothing to do, because every thought you've ever had, whether you want to label it as imposter syndrome or you want to label it as perfectionism, I don't care what you call it, it's moving through. And because it's moved through, there's actually nothing to do to fix or change it, because it's already gone. So that gave me a lot less to do, and it freed up more space to focus on my work and my clients.
So you're saying you surrendered to the truth, that
Uh,
thoughts move through.
yeah, that's a great way to say it. Yeah, sure.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Fascinating. Well, where did all the writing come from? Because you have 4 books, a course. Where did all that come from? And how were you able? The thing that stands out is that the topics are not all the same. So talk a little bit about your decision making, your fascination, and where they all came from.
Yeah. So I thought, when I wrote the first one, I thought that would be the only book I would write, because they say like everybody has one good book in them, or one novel or something. So I hadn't written anything since I was in high school.
Hmm.
I did art, I did textiles in college, and then I worked, with my hands doing arts, arts kind of stuff all my life. So I knew I wasn't stupid, but I never saw myself as an academic person. So and people kept saying to me, you should write a book. And some people would say, oh, you should write a book about the trauma experiences. Some people would say to me, you should write a book about the Hollywood stuff. And then others say, like, I've lived on 3 continents, so like write books about travel or something. And I thought, no, I'm going to smush it all together. So I wrote this book. I didn't tell anyone. And then I have a friend, and she's a book developer and an editor. So I said to her, can I show you something I wrote? And I said, if it's a pile of rubbish, please be nice to me. Right? And actually, now I think about it, when I pressed pressed send to send her the Word document. It was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done.
Oh my gosh, I can totally relate to that. I can
Right?
totally relate to that. I finally wrote about my childhood in a public way. I had a lot of early childhood trauma with both parents dying in a short period of time. And when I first published it, just a blog, I wasn't sending it to an editor, but I needed to get coaching before I did it because I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
I just thought I was going to die. And then right away, as soon as I did it, somebody wrote to me and told me how helpful it was. Thank goodness for that person. But yeah, so what happened? Like, what were you thinking when you pressed send?
I was terrified that she was going to say it was no good.
Mm.
That fear of rejection, is huge. And see, I've done some scary things. I've walked on to movie sets with Steven Spielberg and Elizabeth Taylor. With not knowing anything, and I've, survived all this trauma. And yet that was one of the scariest things I've ever done. That's why I said to her, please, please be nice to me. Let me down gently. And she wrote back and she said, I've read the first few chapters. She said, um, she says, it needs work, but it's worth it. Let's do it. And so she helped me, get
Wow.
it together. And then as I kind of polished up that manuscript, I then printed it out to give to a friend of mine who understood the ideas that I was trying to share. Because all my books, they're stories, but they have a message, like a mental health kind of message. And so I sent it to this other friend, and as soon as I gave her the manuscript, I was on my way home, and it was amazing. My mind kind of went boom, 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 boom with the ideas for 6 more books, and it's
Mm.
always been six novels, right? And I almost knew over that weekend what each one was. One particular character is going to kind of follow through all of them probably, and they're you can read them as separate books, but they kind of have a theme, and a couple of the characters show up throughout them. So the first one I put in everything. So I put in all the trauma stuff, all the Hollywood stuff, finding these ideas, and so I thought that was going to be it. And then I started writing the next one and the next one, and it just kept coming. So the first one I'd say is mostly about the trauma, recovering from trauma. The second one is about the recovering from chronic pain. That one's called Painless. The third one is about hormones. Because, like I said, I was going through menopause when I first kind of came across these ideas. So the hormone one is set in Los Angeles, where I'd lived. And it's about a mother and 2 daughters. So I thought between the 3 of them, they kind of cover all the hormone adventures that we go through. Postpartum depression, a diagnosis called PMDD. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a very severe, like premenstrual tension. Imagine a very severe version of that, where these women are suicidal every month. It's quite awful, but my character recovers. And then the mother is in perimenopause and goes into menopause. So between the 3 of them, they kind of they cover the suffering, and they all find these ideas, and because my menopause symptoms were horrendous when I discovered this. I had such brain fog. It wasn't just things like finding mayonnaise in the freezer, which is kind of funny. I remember starting sentences and not knowing how to finish them. I mean, and when you're a coach, it's a little tricky, or you're speaking at a conference or something. And it was a bit scary at first, but then it kind of became an adventure. Oh, I wonder where this sentence is going. I just had to trust. So,
Wow.
so those are the stories, books I've written so far. And then,
Well, let's list the names while we're talking about them. So the first one is The Myth of Low Self-Esteem.
yeah,
So that's the one dealing with trauma. The second one is Painless, a
yep.
novel about chronic pain. The third one is Very Well,
Mhm.
the story of 3 women's journey with hormones and menopause. And
Yep.
then the fourth one is Beyond Diagnosis, a paradigm shift from pathology to innate health.
Yeah.
And they can all be found everywhere?
On Amazon. They're all on
Mm,
Amazon.
amazing.
Yeah. So the Beyond Diagnosis book is more of a textbook. It's not a story. And it's actually being used in universities now, and we're waiting any day now to hear it. The data is being turned into a research paper that's being published by the American Psychological Association, which is yay.
That's very
Not
exciting.
bad for a girl with no qualifications.
You have lots of qualifications, but not the traditional ones, I
Not
suppose.
the academic ones, no. And this book is the main part of the book is I collected over 60 stories of people who've recovered from every kind of mental health diagnosis you can think of. Yes, you can recover. Everything from psychosis and schizophrenia to bulimia, OCD, PTSD, CPTSD, anorexia, even ADHD and autism are in there. So through this paradigm, this what I'm sharing, which is called the 3 principles, I gathered stories from all over the world, from men and women, from children. And when I say recovered, meaning they're off medication, not needing any more treatment and living their best lives. And
Wow.
so I wanted it to be like a resource. And so my colleagues and students use it as a resource now to show there are no exceptions.
Very powerful stuff. Wow. So you've done all this at an age where midlife can get in your way. When you're trying to run a business, when you're trying to put your work out there in the world, there's a lot of things we have to deal with. It's not just the creation, but it's also the marketing. And as you mentioned, and of course I cracked up, it's the bookkeeping,
Yes.
being professional, keeping track of stuff. So all the things. So can you talk a little bit about what midlife challenges you face or faced or both, and why they keep getting in the way of running your business the way you want to?
Yeah. So I think for me, you could probably put it down to 2 things. One was dealing with technology. That was very challenging. Because, I grew up with, I can remember me and my girlfriend when her father had a business and we had a photocopier. Remember actually cutting and pasting? And you would paste it on a piece of paper and then photocopy it again,
Absolutely.
try and get rid of the Scotch tape marks and stuff like that. I mean, so I've never had any official training in, computers. I'm all self-taught. And I've self-published these books. So I have had editors, but I've taught myself how to self-publish. So, and I do the covers myself. I do all the marketing myself. And I've made mistakes, and I've learned from that. The thing I'm teaching myself more recently is editing. I this course that I've just launched. It's a 6-hour course, and I did all the video editing myself. And that was an interesting journey because for years now I'd wanted to do an online course, and it's a go at your own pace course on my website. And I got stuck so many times, stuck in the technology, stuck in, how was I going to record this? And I was like, I started editing that minutiae little bits and I'd get stuck and I'd give up and I'd come back to it and then I'd give up and come back to it.
It's fascinating because remember the Academy Award piece and the movie piece and your access to help. There's just so much that you are aware of that so many of us aren't even aware of, in terms of what's out
Um,
there and what's possible.
yes and no, because I wasn't involved in editing or production or anything like that. I made my puppets and we showed up on set and it was all laid out for me. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. And I haven't done it in 20 years now. So, but I've realized editing and writing are creative.
Yeah.
So what I did in the end was I've done quite a few courses, live courses on Zoom. So I just advertised another course and I recorded it. And when I was speaking, I recorded it just with like the gallery, the speaker view.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I opened it up for questions with like the people on the course, they could ask questions. I put it back on the gallery so they could, see each other. So basically I just cut them out and kept the bits with me talking. And it's so much more, I think, relatable because I'm talking to actual people. Because
Absolutely.
when I was talking to just the camera, it's like, no, and it's just me and the cat. And it's like, it's really, weird.
I know.
So,
I just feel like I'm talking to myself. By the way, Hannah is speaking about the course. It's a 6-hour online course called Beyond Chronic Pain Masterclass. And of course, the link to find it will be in the show notes.
yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I found talking to an audience made all the difference. And
That's
then,
good. You did
yeah,
it. But you
yeah.
chose to do it yourself, which is interesting because with this podcast, and I agree with you, it's one of the most creative things I've ever done in my life. It'll be 8 years in 2 weeks, which I cannot believe. It's shocking to me. If only I was doing my exercises with the same discipline and consistency. But you said something that I wanted to that just made me laugh. I have a master's thesis with a few graphs in it. It was a qualitative study about the relationship between people and their pet dogs. But anyway, I showed it to my kids when they started thinking about grad school, and they said, "Mom, this is a hand-drawn graph." I said, "Why, yes, it is." And they couldn't believe it because it was a hardbound copy, of the thesis, and it's what was in the library. But back in the day, in the '80s, that's what I
That's
could
what,
manage, and it was accepted.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I think catching up with technology, it's funny. There's things that I've learned now that I can teach myself and I can do, like the
yeah.
self-publishing and the editing. But like today, I did my first Instagram live. I was a guest on someone's Instagram live, and that was, I wouldn't say I was terrifying, but I had to Google how do you be a guest on an Instagram. I didn't know how to do it, and I said to the guy, and he said to me, "I'll send you the instructions." He sent me didn't mean anything to me. I work it out.
What's so fascinating is that younger people, and I've watched my kids, they're in their late 20s. I've watched the way they learn new technology. They don't have the fear about experimenting and pressing things. Where if we did it,
Mhm.
we could lose our whole thesis.
Yeah,
It wouldn't necessarily blow up, but it felt like it would disappear and we
yeah,
wouldn't be able to fix it. It
yeah.
felt catastrophic. But
Yes.
I just watched them the first time they edited something. Happened to be watching because my husband was really good at it, and it was video stuff, and they just dove in with curiosity, like a lightness. And for
Mm,
us, it's a heaviness. It's scary. I've watched myself when I turn on my computer, I'm ready to record an episode, and the settings have changed. When I first started doing it, I'd break out into a sweat and my heart would start racing, like I was so panicked. And now with confidence, I just check on Google and I can find the answer every time.
yeah.
But we don't, how would we know?
Right. It's so funny you should say that because one of the things he said to me was, switch off all the apps on your phone. And I was like, I said, no, because I said, why not? He said, because I won't know how to switch them back on again. Right? I'm not, it's, your Instagram live is not worth me messing up my phone and I can't use it for the
I
rest of the.
finally have it set properly. That's the other thing. We like to set it and forget it. It's kind of like with technology. When we grew up, stuff would last for 30, 40, 50 years. I
Mhm.
remember once when we had to replace an oven and it was only 10 years old. And I'm like, what's going on here? Ovens used to, my mom hasn't replaced her oven. What's happening? So we
Right.
kind of resent having to fix things
Yeah.
that like our phones. They don't even last. How long do they last? A couple of years? We wanna hang on to them forever because we figured it out. We don't wanna
Yes.
change and learn more. Very, very common. So you said the technology was one of the ways that midlife gets in your way. What
Mm.
else happens in your world?
Well, I guess it's past now, but I guess the menopause was also the thing that really
Major. Yeah.
was pretty major at the time because I didn't understand what was happening. I don't have sisters. My mother passed away a long time ago. And so, and I'm older than most of my friends are younger than me. So I didn't really have any term of reference.
Mm.
And I used, in my books, I often use a lot of my own experience. So what happened for me was I was in Los Angeles and I remember waking up in the middle of the night in a bit of a, with fever, I thought it was, and thinking, oh no, I'm getting sick, and I had perimenopause, mine lasted for 12 years,
Ooh,
right?
that's not
So,
great. That's not fair.
that's right, right? And so I was probably in my mid 40s. What was that? Like mid to late 40s when that happened. And and then I didn't think, then the next night I woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning with fever and I thought, oh no, I'm getting sick. Third night in a row, I woke up with this kind of fever and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm getting sick. And I thought, this is weird. I only get sweaty at night. Oh my goodness.
I think I figured it out. Wow. Must be a night sweat. Must be menopause related.
Right. And so what happened for me was, um, I each of the like traditional symptoms like night sweats, hot flushes during the day, brain fog, which are the kind of, I guess, the basics of it. Each one would come and then go away and come and go away, and then it would stay, and then a new like then the daytime hot flushes would come, and it got to the point where it was so bad that I can remember sweat dripping off the end of my nose, And I also teach. So I was trying to teach something and I could not find the words in my head. And I knew how to do this thing. I was showing the student. I just couldn't find it in my head. And I got really good at bluffing because I didn't want to sound like an idiot, but because they're paying me for this class. And I'm like, anyway, so, um, you know, and then it would come. And so, I actually got to the point where I wasn't functioning well. I was having hot flushes about every 20 minutes, like having fever every 20 minutes. And what started happening was just before the hot flush, I would get this drop in energy, like as if, my batteries are being taken out. And a couple of times I almost fell and thank God there was a table or a wall to hold me up. And it was so bad that I was like, I remember at the time there was that horrible, there was a piece of research about HRT, which it's now been completely disproved. It's amazing how research can be, wrongly presented. And so taking HRT was really scary. And I got to the point though, it's like, I don't care if it's going to be breast cancer because I can't function. Right. So I did go down the alternate route for about 5 years. I really tried with bioidenticals and all these kind of things. I really wanted to do the alternative work. And I can remember my bioidentical MD. He was a medically trained doctor, but he was, doing this alternative stuff as well. And he said to me, no, you have to go on HRT because he said, we need to tame the tiger and then we'll sort you out. And so, and I took HRT and the symptoms went away in 2 days.
Oh my goodness.
So I know it doesn't work for everyone, but it worked. It worked for me, and I'm very grateful.
Well, what's so fascinating is, I don't even know if fascinating is not the right word. It's just that we deal with stuff as women our age. We do deal with stuff that so many other people don't deal with it. Like personally, my menopause experience wasn't anything like yours. I had 2 fits of anger that were very contained.
Mm-hmm.
It was bizarre because I'd never had anything like that before. I never had mood swings with my period over the years, nothing like that. So, and the weight situation has changed. Like the old tricks don't work, and trying to get a handle on it, it's challenging with a few things, with food sensitivities and things that are happening too. I didn't have the experience that you have with night sweats or anything like that. So, it really can get in the way of the way you want to run your business. We take energy and our ability to make a calendar and a schedule and show up. We take that for granted. But when you're not sleeping, when you feel terrible, you're exhausted, and you have sweat dripping off the end of your nose, it's really challenging. Well, thank you for sharing all that. What are you excited about in your business? What's next for you?
Well, like I mentioned, the data from the Beyond Diagnosis book has been. I had 2 PhD researchers approached me when they read the book, and they independently said, this should be a research paper. So I'm like a co-author on this research paper with these 2 amazing guys, and it's been in peer review for about 6 months now, which apparently is the process it all goes through. So it hasn't been rejected yet. So fingers crossed in the next few weeks we should hear. And that for me will be, as much as the Academy Award and publishing books has been amazing, for me, having a research paper, I think I feel like a grown up because I left, I didn't finish my college degree. And so I don't really have qualifications, as it were. So having this research paper, is very, very exciting to me. I think there might need to be some champagne when that comes out.
I think so. Celebration is definitely in order.
Yeah. And so the course, the 6-hour course, was a major achievement for me to get that out and working. So now I really, I'm kind of living my dream. My dream when I first kind of pivoted into this kind of coaching was that I wanted to be working with clients, riding and traveling to work, And so last year I led a retreat in Denmark. It was amazing. 4 day retreat. Having people come from all over the country, all over Scandinavia came to that retreat. This year, I was asked to speak in Denver and in Spain. So just booked my ticket for Spain. So it's going to be a 3-4 day conference in Spain.
Oh my
So
gosh, so exciting.
that's always been my, I've traveled a lot, but it's always been for work. And I love that because you get to go to parts of the world that you normally wouldn't think of going to. And so, um, I see it as a privilege, when I'm coaching people, I don't know about you, but I always feel like I have a front row seat in somebody else's transformation.
Yes, yeah.
So it's really, I see that as a privilege, and to watch people, get well and recover and go, reunite with their families or get their health back, and that's amazing. And I've seen people who are, with like fibromyalgia or Lyme disease, all kinds of things, who have been told that they'll never recover, get their energy back, get their life back is amazing.
Yeah, it's so rewarding and it's so inspiring, and it just really makes working fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I love my job. In fact, I was saying this to someone this morning. I said the burnout rate for um, social workers, nurses, people like that in the caring profession is usually between 3 and 5 years right now, because they're taking it on themselves and
Mm.
burning out. I've been doing this for 30 years. My teachers have been doing this for 40 years. Because when you see that we're always feeling our thinking, and you don't have to listen to your thoughts, and you are not your thoughts. I don't. And the other thing is, what I found now with my clients is I don't see them as broken or needing to be fixed. They may have innocently got caught up in a lot of stinky thinking, but I can see them as healthy people underneath that stuff. And so before I would see them as broken, and I had to get in there and fix their lives and fix their bodies. Now it's not on me to fix anybody. That's huge. So I don't burn out because it's not my job to fix anybody. My job is to point them back in the direction of their innate well-being. And when they see that for themselves, then when they have that insight, it's amazing. That's when people light up. And
Yes, it's so good. It's so good. I describe it as like an aura of possibility. So when
yes,
I speak to people, it's like it's not really an aura, but that's what it feels like to me because I see it everywhere and they just don't see it yet because exactly what you said. I don't deal with the physical stuff that you deal with. So you've been able to make such a huge contribution. How can people best get in touch? Is it your website?
yeah, my website is my name, chanastudley.com, or you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And
Amazing. Let's just spell it. It's www.chanastudley.com.
correct, yeah. And then all the books are on Amazon. So just put my name into Amazon, and you'll come up with the books as well.
Amazing. Hannah, thank you so much for taking the time from your day and sharing all of this. I really appreciate your resilience, what you've been able to do, your courage, your tenacity. My goodness, you've accomplished a lot. I love what you're doing. The contribution you're making is huge. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Suzy. It's been a pleasure.
All right, that's all for now. If you're listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur and would also like to come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We'd love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It's never too late for you to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick, before we say goodbye, if you are connecting with the show and are finally ready to make some changes to regret-proof your life, I want to invite you to apply for the Women in the Middle Academy. It's my transformational midlife group coaching program to help you get clear about what's getting in your way so you can get on with the good stuff. Head over to www.womeninthemiddleacademy.com. Talk soon.